Dude, I don't have a cabinet to open. This is so weird. We've seen their clickies and tactiles, but how does their first linear switch perform? There's only one way to find out.
What's after life? You who and the eyes were the like old time to old time now, yeah.
So originally this video was supposed to be another ChosFox unboxing mystery switch type video, but they did reach out and slide in my DMs and ask if I wanted to try out their new switch by the name of the Ding Dongs, and yes, of course I had to say yes. Who could pass up a name like that? I've been trying to make my intros a little bit more informative and less of just a B-roll splash, so I did include some specs here and there, but there are some things that I would like to point out. First of all, these switches are pretty light with a 52 gram bottom out, so a spring swap isn't out of the question here, especially since I do prefer my long poles to be slightly heavier. With that being said, the springs provided are already pretty good. They're a 2-staged long spring that's also gold plated, and there's almost no spring scratch at all whatsoever. I also think these switches are slightly lubed from the factory. It's not that much lube. You can definitely put more on, but as for my sound tests, I decided to just not lube them at all whatsoever. And like most JWK switches, these are also priced at around 50 cents a switch, which puts them in a competitively enticing price range. To get started, we'll test them in 4 different builds. First, we're going to try the dongs in a cheap tray mount keyboard, then an entry-level gasket mount, and then an entry enthusiast PE foamy board, and last but not least, the frog. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Here's the wings, a pretty cheap, pingy, and stiff board, but it does give us an initial impression of the DD in an unforgiving scenario, and, you know, I think they do pull it off in style. In a scenario like this, it is generally up to whether the switch has enough star power to outshine the disabilities of the board they're placed in. I could already feel how annoyingly light they were, but it's not as important as the collective sound of the board, which I think is pretty good. I'm gonna be honest now, this is my first time trying the Tiger 80 Lite, and it is a flexy board. And you know what I found really goes well with the flexi board? Long poles. Just long poles in general. So I'm gonna have to highly rate this combo here. Long pole and PE is just a magnificent combo of pop and thock. While I felt like the DDs were forcibly dragging their own weight in the previous sound tests, the foamy nature of the QK65 in combination with the dongs definitely emphasizes the desired sound to the max, and the oral bliss here is absolutely unbeatable. I'm not even a huge fan of how marbly the QK65 is, but I just wanted to show you guys how one-sided the matchup is with a normal switch. Like, it's not even fair. And of course, the classic frog with its higher pitched sound signature. There's a reason why the MX Blacks on Alu combo is a crowd favorite. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the dongs also do respectable on this board too. It's really hard to judge this situation because the frog does sit in a price range where I'd consider boards to start being more dominant in contribution towards the whole sound signature of the keyboard. What's your favorite combo here? Let me know in the comments. I definitely have to go with the foamy QK65 here, and probably the Tiger 80 Lite in a close second place. For most switches, the keyboard that you put them in can affect how they sound, but especially these days with all the new long poles coming out, that has never been more true. Long poles can be decent in most scenarios, but if you know how to build them properly, they can really go far. Which really means that people now have to actually think for themselves rather than just slapping a bunch of stuff together. I know this video is supposed to be about the DDs themselves, but this is actually like the first real long pole discussion I've had on this channel, so I kind of want to spend a little bit more time just to talk about them. But if I were to talk about the dongs by themselves, they are very light. If you do want to unintentionally thock all over yourself, then go right ahead. But yes, for me personally, I feel like they are a lot less satisfying to type on because that poppy sound isn't preceded by a weighted press. I do appreciate how neutral the sound profile of the switch is, and also how smooth it is straight out of the box. I guess the next logical question you might want to ask me is if I am using the Switch right now, and I really don't have a choice but to. That doesn't mean that I don't like it. I just didn't bring enough Switches to my dorm, so that's just how that turned out. Which, by the way, I haven't talked much about the Tiger, but it is a really nice board for how much it costs, which is just around $100. The flex on it is phenomenal, which I already talked about. But other than that, if you just don't put in all of the foam, you get a really neutral sounding keyboard, also with a lot of expandability and customization with the custom tape that you can put in the bottom of it. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I know I haven't been posting very often, trying to stay in college and not drop out, but yeah, I guess I'll see you all later. Peace.